Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for jumping on another ATS University session. My name is Zach Allison. I'm our Market Development Sales National Accounts Manager for all the firms up in Canada, and I organize and run our market development team that's available to assist any of the engineering or architectural firms as you get started on the ATS spec tool. If this is your first time joining us, our ATS Universities are product sessions where we really focus on some of the key details of products that may be a little bit more unique and challenging to specify, challenging to understand, what product you need and what options you need. And then we tend to show how you can find those products on the spec tool. If you are unaware of the spec tool, I guess thank you for trying out a brand new webinar session. But we are essentially a free online plumbing specification tool that allows architects and engineers to select and configure their products and get exactly what they have configured in the output spec. It's not just the base model specification, a years old, out of date specification that is not living with the times. It's an always updated online system that is paid for by your manufacturers like Lixil, through Growe, and American Standard, and DXV. So for all of our ATS University sessions, they are all recorded. I'll show you how you can find them, any of our previously recorded sessions on the ATS spec tool after the session. But due to that fact, we do have everyone muted upon entry. However, I will be moderating and keep an eye on the Q&A chat fields. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to raise them. I'll bring them up to Gray when we get kind of in between options. And then lastly, I know that there's always a need for the certifications of attendance and reporting these. So we do have our ATS University standard where we send out our certificate of attendance, which is good enough for most of the Canadian self-reporting mechanisms. But if you are doing the AIA accreditation, I believe this presentation is AIA accredited, Gray, correct me if I'm wrong? Perfect. So yes. They'll be able to just take down the number and report it themselves, correct?
Yep. At the end of the presentation, I've got the code, so you can absolutely get credit for sitting through this.
Perfect. Well, and I guess with that, we'll introduce Gray, who's one of my partners. We've done a couple of these webinars over the last year. It's been a great resource for educating us on a variety of the new plumbing products. I think we did one on toilets. We did some on water savings, which was a great presentation. And this time on some of the new products. And some of the products been out for a couple of years, but there's a number of new finishes coming out on shower design. But there's a lot of details, and we were talking before the presentation on some of the pieces that get easily kind of skipped over, whether it's due to lack of familiarity or not, maybe being a personal homeowner trying to do your own renos. But hey, that's why we educate our audience and make sure that you guys are fully aware of the product, all the options, and how to put it together. So without any further ado, thank you very much for joining us again, Gray, and I'll pass it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Thank you. And hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm pleased to be talking to you today. Zach and I were talking before shower systems. It's probably the thing that I get asked about by our customers, our showroom associates. This is the number one thing they want to talk about. It's the number one thing that the DIYer gets wrong. I'll just share with you real quick. I know this from stats. The big box, what I call the big box, Lowe's and Home Depot and Menards here in North America. If you buy a shower system at a big box, it's the number one item in the whole store returned. People purchase this and take it home and open up the box and they think, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? And it's the, out of all categories, not just plumbing, but lawn and garden and lumber and everything, it is the number one returned item to the big box. It's also, Zach was talking about people who try to do it themselves and buy the components online. There are so many horror stories of people purchasing the shower system they think is great. They go to have a plumber install it and the plumber points out, oh my gosh, all you got was the trim. You got the handle and the escutcheon plate and the shower head. There's no valve here. So ATS, what a great tool because when you go into ATS, it's going to make recommendations to you of all the different components that ought to go together for specifying. And it's one of those where the homeowner really does need professional help. And that's where you all are so critical and come in. You need to be knowledgeable. It's the value of using a professional. Our research shows that the cost of a bathroom renovation always goes down if you get professionals to help you, as opposed to trying to do it yourself, believe it or not. So
now, I guess one thing as we're diving in and going to cover the CEU and AIA accreditation that I know is on the next slide. I'll mention, obviously we've talked a lot about kind of more the private home experience and the big box stores as we're getting started the intro here. These products are absolutely the commercial grade. You would use these in your multi-story office tower that maybe has a gym or a private ensuite for, say, CEOs. You'd use these in community centers. You'd use these in multifamily residential, all sorts of applications where these products come up. We've talked about the private home experience, but this is absolutely for the commercial market.
Yep, excellent. So multi-generational, this is actually about multi-gen shower systems, which actually should be all shower systems. There is a trend in North America towards shower systems, and multi-generation, it applies to those where you have different people of different capabilities and generations living together and using the same shower. But in reality, if I'm a young person and design and spec a shower, as I age, I become multi-generational. So it actually is everybody. And again, this is an AIA approved presentation, and I'll give you the credit at the end. We're going to talk a little bit today about accessibility and ADA. Boy, I apologize. I don't know the impact of ADA in Canada, but
that's why you got me here, Gray.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I can help translate it.
Yeah. So, okay. So ADA was an American in 1990 written into law that any public space there needed to be accessibility for everybody. And so ADA applies in the US, it applies to any public or commercial space. It does not apply to residential. I'll also talk about accessibility. That's everybody, as we have any kind of restriction to mobility going forward, that has an impact. So what is a multi-generational shower system? Obviously, it's a shower system that's flexible and adaptable. So it's a shower system that deals with either changes in individuals or individuals as we change as we go through our lifetime. So again, I started talking about it, accessibility versus ADA. Accessibility means that a product or design can be used by a wide range of people and physical abilities. Whereas ADA relates to the Americans with Disability Act. That's what ADA stands for. And ADA is a civil rights law here in the US that prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. And I'll just share with you, ADA is a wonderful thing. It has totally changed our world, our lives. And the example I would give you all on ADA is wheelie bags. Does anybody remember when you used to travel and you had a suitcase? And once you packed your suitcase, you had to pick it up and carry it around? Wheelie bags did not exist. Now, why didn't wheelie bags exist? The wheel existed. What was wrong with the suitcase industry? It's ADA. ADA went back and had everybody reevaluate every entrance, every ramp, every sidewalk, every curb, where you put in an accessible ramp instead of a step. And with the advent of that, two things came out of it. The wheelie bag that we all have today, and we wheel through the airport, and certainly skateboarders appreciated ADA. And that industry took off. So ADA is a great thing. I can't say enough positive about it. It's inclusive, and it should include everybody. So to understand and determine the requirement components for changing generations, but really also users' needs as they grow. So we're going to talk about who are the different users, what are their needs, and how do we make design decisions to meet them. So I'm going to talk about some different groups here. Zach talked about this. I'm going to talk about a young couple and what sort of shower system should they put in. I'm going to talk about a multi-generational family. We're going to talk about hospitality, which is hotels. And of course, in hospitality, you have a range. You have families, you have couples, you have business people, all have different varying needs. And then Zach alluded to it, shower systems for the workplace. A lot of, especially now that we're going to hybrid work, a lot of workplaces have gyms. And what are the type of requirements for a workplace bathroom? So I want to start with the different components that make up a multi-generational shower system. And you can see them all. They're all here, but I'm going to go through them one by one. The first one, the obvious one, is a shower head. And basically in our industry, there are two types of shower heads. There's a rain head. These tend to be 8 inches or larger. And for the most part, they're single function, but they take the water being delivered and spread it out and give you a large surface drenching experience. More common is the standard shower head. And this is where you have the 45-degree elbow coming out of the wall and a shower head to that. And these typically are multi-function. So you can change the spray patterns and get different experiences. And that's the more common type that you would find. Now, of course, there are exceptions. One of the things that has to be considered, especially in multi-generational, if you're putting in a shower system that can be changed, even a rain head that could be changed, can everybody in the family reach it? And is it possible to change it with limited mobility? So there are products out there. You can see one in this picture actually is a Bluetooth remote control. You can locate the remote control where everyone in the family can reach it, but then change the actual functions that are up on the shower head. So hand showers are another component and an important one for multi-generational showers. They typically have some sort of a holder or slide bar that goes up and down. And so you can adjust the height for you personally or for different people in the family, which is a really nice feature. So if you've got little kids, you can put it down low. Myself, I'm over 6 feet, I can put it up high. The other thing about handhelds is that they give you versatility for washing the dog, but they really make cleaning the whole shower easier, shower or tub, because you can take it off and use it to clean. So there are really all kinds of upsides to handheld showers. And of course, the thing to look for in a handheld shower, it could be your only shower. Instead of having a shower head, you could have just this. If you do choose that, maybe choose one with a larger pattern. If you choose one with multi-functions, are those functions easy to change? Can you change those functions with one hand, or can you change those functions with limited mobility? There are ADA compliant multi-function shower heads and now in the market, and that's something absolutely we should look for. Another component in multi-generational shower systems is side body sprays. And again, these can really be wonderful for people with limited mobility or multi-generation. But if you're putting in side body sprays, this is one of those cases where you need to work with the client and assess their needs, their limitations, their height, and position the side body sprays according to those clients' needs. Side body sprays, this is not one where one layout fits everybody. This is one that's really better if you can customize it to the actual users who will be using that shower. And of course, the plumber needs to know this, not you, but when they install them, they've got to put in a pressure balancing loop. The plumber knows this, but they've got to put in a system that delivers equal pressure to each of the side body sprays. Otherwise, the majority of the water will come out the lowest spray and very little water will come out the top one. So that's just something to know. But again, the plumber needs to know that. The valve component is critical. And here in North America, there are two basic types of valves. One is a pressure balance. And what a pressure balance valve does is if there's a change in the water pressure coming in either from the cold or the hot side, there's a mechanism inside that will balance it and will equalize the pressure. When I was a kid, I grew up, I was the middle of 5 boys, and pressure balance didn't exist when I was young. My brothers thought it was very funny. If I was taking a shower, they thought it was very funny to run in and flush the toilet. And what that would do, the toilet would demand all the cold water, the pressure would drop on the cold side, and nothing but hot water would be delivered to me in the shower, and I would get scalded, which is pretty funny, I guess, but pressure balance eliminates that. It's a safety feature and a good one. And the thing to look for in pressure balance, you really want to look for a really high quality installation and a high quality brass, but the valving, boy, if at all possible, you want to use ceramic valving because it's going to be more precise and last longer and require less maintenance and repair. A low quality pressure balance is very tricky to adjust. You've probably stayed in a hotel where, oh my gosh, it was really difficult to get it right between hot and cold. So you want to look for one that has that's engineered with a wide comfort zone. So typically on a pressure balance, you first turn it on, you go through cold, all your different temperature range to full hot. And then to turn it off, you turn it off again. Some of them do have volume control, but again, in North America, with the restrictions in all our shower heads, almost no one wants less water when they're showering. So the majority of pressure balance out there now don't have a volume control. They deliver the full volume that goes to your shower head.
Yeah, we're definitely already pushing the low limits of the amount of water. So volume control on top of them, it might be a decade or so out of date.
Well, it's no longer one of the desired or required features as we're restricting the water usage.
I do find the comfort range is something I want to circle back on actually, because that is one of the big aspects of this valve and really of selecting a valve. Is there any sort of defined minimums on the range by code?
No.
Or is this just purely up to the manufacturers?
Yeah, that's the problem. At the moment, the code agencies are not testing for adjustability. That's not at the moment. That is not a code requirement. So yeah, you really need to look into the spec sheets or ask about the different brands which are more adjustable.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one in this picture happens to be one that works. This rough works across 3 different brands. That happens to be the brands that I represent, Lixil, American Standard, and Groa. And they have been engineered to have a wide comfort range like this. So you really got to, again, this is where you got to be knowledgeable when you're working with a client on what's a better pressure balance valve. They're not all equal. It's one of those things. It is not a commodity. Depending on
tangential, but it makes me think, the well standard that's becoming, very uniform. It's required on certain aspects for lead. That might be interesting if they start including that for their testing as well, because really they're testing for, I think, pressure already, but they could certainly consider testing for comfort range. That'd be an interesting aspect.
Yeah, and so all the different brands that I know of are all members of an organization called PMI, and they get together twice a year. It's the kind of thing they discuss, and it's really a good comment. I'll bring it up. I happen to know the Lixil representatives who are part of the PMI board. In fact, the current president of PMI is a Lixil employee. So I think that's a great idea, having some sort of standard, a minimum, on
defined comfort range. How many degrees of options do they have between 90 and 100?
Yeah, that's great. That's a good one. A good takeaway for me today. The other type of showering valve in the world, and this is actually the more popular one in the world, pressure balance is only a North American thing, is thermostatic. And the difference in thermostatic, it's like the thermostat on your wall. There's an element inside there that not only adjusts for change in water pressure, but also adjusts for change in water temperature. So if the temperature of the water being delivered to the valve changes, the thermostat inside of this unit compensates for that. And so thermostatic valves, the one in this picture is a good example. You usually have a big knob, and its purpose is only to adjust the temperature. It is not an on-off knob. It is a temperature-only adjustment knob. And you can get a very refined, careful, discrete temperature. And once you set that temperature, if you're the one who uses that shower every day, you can just leave it. It'll always be at exactly the temperature you want. You don't have to adjust it every single time you turn it on like a pressure balance. And then in the case of thermostatic, so you got this thermostatic unit that's adjusting the temperature only, and then you have some sort of on-off mechanism, whether it's a diverter or an on-off valve or an on-off handle. In this case, you see it's buttons. And I didn't talk about this, but the flow rate changes. Well, here, let's go to the next slide. The difference between pressure balance and thermostatic, reacts to change in pressure? Yes, both of them do. Reacts to a change in the temperature of the water? No, the pressure balance does not, but the thermostatic does. Volume control, typically you do have volume control on the thermostatic, you don't on the pressure balance, but we talked about that. Independent temperature, sometimes on the pressure balance, but always on the thermostatic. You always got that big knob just for temperature. Flow rates is a big deal. If you're going to have multi-showering outlets, like I'm going to have a handheld and side body sprays or a shower head and side body sprays, thermostatic's the better way to go. I'm going to get a 9 to 16 gallon per minute flow rate, where my pressure balance is only going to be 4 to 6 gallons a minute flow rate on average. And then, so just so you know, the most popular shower systems in America is the pressure balance by far. I would say 90% plus of all the showers in America. When you go to a hotel, they're always pressure balance. And the reason is the thermostatic, even though it's more precise, even though it's safer, it's more expensive. And I don't want to speak for Canadians here, but Americans want a lot for very cheap. So it's not uncommon if you're designing an upscale luxury home that maybe the primary bathroom and the primary bedroom suite would have a thermostatic, but the family bathroom and all the guest bathrooms would have a pressure balance. That's not an uncommon situation. So I talked about there's the control that turns it on, off, and the temperature. But if you have multi-functions, and we talked about a shower head or a handheld or side body sprays, you need some sort of control or diverter. And in the industry today, it used to be that diverter handle was a separate valve and a separate installation, as you can see on the far left there. But what's trending in the industry today is making it in all one unit. So I've got my pressure balance or my thermostatic control below, and then I have my diverter or on-off volume diverter as a separate handle, but in the same escutcheon and in the same valve. And what's the benefit of that? Designers really like the fact that it's all contained in one. You can see again on this slide, and this is the case of thermostatic, the buttons are my on-off, and they have a volume control that's part of them for a little bit of adjustment. It works like your car radio in your the on-off button in your first car, where you push it on off and you rotate it to adjust the volume. The thing on the far left, that's a diverter. We're seeing that less and less, because instead of having all the multiple handles, the advantage is that if I do a separate one, I can locate it wherever I want. I can put as many on-off volume or diverters in as I want. The downside is it makes for a more expensive, a more complicated installation. And the design community is really liking everything in one single plate. So the notion that I've grouped all my controls into one discussion, you got an easier installation because the valves are all put together at the factory. They install easier and quicker, and you do get a cleaner installation. So it's my opinion that the one on the right, the two-handle, that's what's trending at the moment. You're going to see more in those because they have a minimal appearance and a minimal footprint, but still deliver all the same functionality at a reduced cost.
Yeah, it's just like, any other aspect of our commercial plumbing world. If you think of the number of roof drains, well, the number of cores that you're going through the slab, cost goes up. Number of installations or holes that you're putting in the wall to install this, costs going up. So certainly the one-stop shop type aspect, the one piece fits all is certainly beneficial.
So please look for that, because that's totally trending in the plumbing industry at the moment. So it's the easiest of all. Speaking of simple, easy installation, this is really popular in Europe. These are exposed shower systems. So what you're seeing here is everything I talked about: the thermostatic valve, on-off controls, the slide bar. I've got a shower head here, a handheld, but none of it's inside the wall. All of it's on on this side of the finished wall, which is brilliant. I think this is, as a designer, I think not only do I think it's cool looking, but it's actually more affordable because, again, everything's put together at the factory. All that's happening is that the plumber runs in a hot and cold line to the desired height, and a hot and a cold supplies pop out of the wall. And you can see this is universal. So these are sold all over the world. This is an exposed shower system like this is actually more popular in Europe than putting it behind the walls. And I don't know if you all know this, in Europe, when you move in Europe, I think I've talked about this before. When you move in Europe, you take everything with you. So when I buy a house or move into a new apartment somewhere in Europe, there's nothing. There's no kitchen cabinets. There's no appliances. The toilet probably isn't there. The sink's not there. The faucets aren't there. The previous tenant took it all with them. And you're expected, hence the reason IKEA, that you're expected to get all that stuff and install it yourself. So if I buy this shower system in Europe, when I go to move, I just unbolt it from the wall and take it with me. And then
Well, like, I guess the trim I kind of understand, but your cabinets?
yeah. Oh yeah, the kitchen cabinets, everything goes. Yeah.
Wild. I
Yeah.
thought I'm just European, I guess. I've had my own shower head and my own toilet and faucet coming with me for my last 3 moves around Toronto.
But imagine if you took everything in your kitchen. The supplies and the drains get left behind. Everything else goes.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's a completely different mindset. And it's one of the reasons typically Europeans spend way more money on their cabinets and their faucets than we do in the US, because they're purchasing it for a lifetime. They really think of it that way. So anyway, what's cool about this is just so you know, there's a universal spec on that hot and cold. They have to be 5 7/8 inch on center from the hot and cold popping out of the wall for the shower system to fit on. And that's for everybody's, not just the ones that Lixil makes, but everybody's. The Grower brand is the most popular in the world. I know that's a crazy number, but that's a crazy number because I can't speak for Canada, but America, we don't use the metric system. You all probably know this. We're the holdout, which is just insane. As a designer, it made me crazy my entire career. It's a perfectly normal number if you use the metric system. It's 150 millimeters. It's a solid round number, 150 millimeters, center on center to hot and cold. But of course, in America, that becomes 5 7/8. And so the reason I tell you this, so many American plumbers, they just fudge it. They think, oh my gosh, 5 7/8, I'll just put it 6 inches and I'll be fine. and no, it doesn't work. They go to install it and it doesn't fit. So anyway, that's a little aside.
So let's hope that they used PEX piping then, so that they can just adjust.
Yeah, so some sort of flex. Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, we sell these adjustable adapters to solve the problem where the plumber just didn't get it right. So anyway, just as an alternative, this meets all the requirements I'm talking about with multi-gen. Is actually a simpler, cleaner installation. And if anything goes wrong, oh my gosh, not only can you work on anything without going into the wall, but if something fails on one of these systems, it fails into the shower. It doesn't fail into your wall. So, but we're not going to change the world. Grab bars are another important part of a multi-generational shower. And I don't want to go too deep into the specifics of grab bars. Know that they're trending. More and more showers are putting in grab bars. The thing you need to know is ADA requirements for grab bars is only required in commercial public spaces. So if I have a hotel, I've got to follow ADA when I'm putting grab bars in, at least here in the US. Or if I'm a workplace shower, I've got to follow ADA. Or if I'm, the outlier here is if I have a multi-generational apartment complex, but I used government money to build it, I've got to follow ADA. The reason I tell you this is there are very strict requirements for where grab bars have to be located and what shape the grab bars are. Very strict requirements in ADA. If it's a public ADA, typically a residential shower system is not ADA, and there are not these requirements. And there's a bunch of great grab bars on the marketplace that don't meet ADA, but certainly are wonderful features to have. There are grab bars for your shower that are also a soap dish. There are grab bars for your showers that are also a towel bar. There are grab bars that that are round and go around the valve itself. I don't have any in my presentation here, but know that for residential, ADA is not a requirement. So you can locate the grab bars. The thing on grab bars, though, is they've got to support a minimum amount of weight, support 250 pounds. And what was my other? Oh, it's got to be anchored. You can't just put it into drywall or put it into the tile. You got to make sure the grab bar is anchored in the studs behind the finished wall.
And similarly, we do have, in Canada, there's multiple different design codes for barrier-free across the various provinces. And some of those differences do come down to the grab bars.
Okay.
Now, luckily, for all those that may be on the call, if you are working on a project and you need assistance, we have personnel that are here to help. And we even have some design guides that are here to help. We've broken down barrier-free code across all the various provinces with a quick design guide. So if you need access to that, again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll probably have someone from my team, whoever's looking after your office, reach out. We can either do a full presentation on it or just send you over the design guide with all the keys that you need. Most likely be Natalia. She's very focused on the grab bar and all the various accessories that are needed. Even something small. I know one of the differences between ADA and OBC, the Ontario Building Code, is our peened grab bar is also a slightly different diameter. So those two small differences, like you're talking about the nitty gritty details in the ADA that are required to get correct. We've got even more specifics to it. But all those are built into our rules-based system, so that if you are selecting a project and you select your project to be in Ontario, the ATS spec tool will apply Ontario Building Code. That's true across Canada, and it's true in the US as well. So all the various statewide differences are built into it as well.
Excellent. Excellent, Zach. That's excellent. I was going to say, I can't, in this CEU today, I cannot teach you the specifics for ADA and grab bar because there's too many specific to the installation and the geography, the location. So I was going to say, you've got to do your homework. You've got to look it up. What are the specifics? Even easier than that is, if you're a good place to start, obviously, is go to ADA and was it Natalia?
Yeah, Natalia is our resident expert.
Yeah, check with Natalia to see what it is you actually are going to need, because I can't educate you because there are too many specifics.
But I think you raised a good point, though, and it's true whether it is a private home or even your commercial office. You may have your one barrier-free, truly barrier-free compliant, and then the others may be called barrier-free intent. This universal design type, or as we're calling it, multi-generational, where you're providing accessibility still. It just maybe not be to the full barrier-free code, which is covered by the other stall. And it reminds me of when LEED started getting a little bit too costly, and you would have green design intent, LEED intent. They're taking some of the good practices of it and doing it that way. So it's an interesting design standard that seems to be changing, is more universal.
So that's great. So intent versus actual letter of the code.
Yeah,
it's a good thing. Seats, same sort of thing. If it's a movable seat or a permanent seat, there are really there are defined codes. You can see bathtub seats, 17-inch minimum or 19-inch max. That's the height from the floor. A removable seat has to be a 15-inch minimum or 16-inch max. If it's a permanent seat, it has to be a minimum of 15, but it obviously can be deeper than that. But again, it's one of those, a seat's a great thing. Seats, if you're looking at multi-generational, if you're putting in a steam shower, and I know how popular those are north of the border, I totally get it. A steam shower should always have a seat in it to make that a great experience. So seats a great thing to consider. The other thing along this line is the drains. Drain, I know, is just a hole in the floor, but there are multiple drains. And if you're doing accessible or barrier free, there are different drains that make it easier to move around. So there's just a hole in the floor drain. There is a hole in the floor drain that has a cover over it. There are also trench drains. So you got to consider all of the above and where you're going to locate it. And most critical of all, if you're doing a multi-shower system, to look into the specifics, whether the drain you spec'd and the venting for that installation is going to deal with the maximum flow rate of the water you're delivering. So if I might have a drain that works great on one shower system, but if I put in, multiple shower systems for 2 people showering, you don't want to overwhelm the drain. So those are all things to consider. All right, so ADA, again, and I guess my takeaway is ADA is a law here in the US. There are very specific specs. And so get help from ATS on knowing what you need to do. There are different specs for a removable seat, a permanent seat. So when designing an ADA shower, placement is more important than the product selection. Obviously, you want to select the right products, but placement becomes really critical. And again, we are just repeating it. ADA typically is for commercial buildings, whereas for residential, we're looking for more accessibility. If you're limited in your mobility, if you use a wheelchair, there are 2 basic types of showers. There is the transfer shower. That's where you have room to move your wheelchair up to the shower, and then you transfer into the shower. You get out of your wheelchair and slide over onto the seat. Or the other type is a roll-in shower, where you physically roll your wheelchair into the shower space. And so again, you need to know the dimensions on that, and what the code requires for turning radiuses and accessibility, both outside the shower and once you're in it. The real takeaway that I have tripped across over my entire career is if you have a final shower base that is a certain dimension to meet ADA, typically the base you spec has to be larger. The base you put in, once you put in the finished walls and all the different components, the size is going to come down. So say a 38 by 38 shower base is ADA compliant. So you order a 38 by 38 shower base, but when the finished walls are done, it's down to 36 by 36 and it no longer meets code. Those are the kind of things you got to know. Typically in an ADA shower, you need to go oversize on the dimensions of the base to achieve the minimum interior dimension that you're looking for. So just another thing to look for. I know here at Lixil, when we make ADA shower bases, they're these goofy dimensions. It's because they're oversized to deal with the finished product. And again, be sure to check the specs for a removable seat versus a permanent seat. And again, with ADA, there'll be a specific definition of where you locate the grab bars, if it's a removable seat versus a permanent seat. And they actually call out where the shower head should be placed in relationship to the seat and where the controls should be placed. So in the case of the movable seat, typically the controls are opposite, if I understand correctly, on the opposite wall. If it's a permanent seat, typically the controls should be next to you. So again, dive into the specifics and be sure to check with ATS to make sure you get it right. And I guess that's the big takeaway on ADA. There are so many specifications and again, different codes across Canada. It's worth your time doing your homework to check to make sure you get it right, because you want to get it right at the beginning. The tragedy is when you have to go back and fix it at the end of the project, right? So you want to do the more measure twice, cut once. You know, you don't want to have to fix it at the end. So again, let's just a what if. I've got this young couple. How would I put it together a shower system for them? Obviously, Maybe they, for efficiency and time and saving water, they shower together, and they're very active. They're very mobile. The trick, though, is they're not going to stay young forever. They're going, as I shared with you before, they're going to become multi-generational. So, boy, you know, that exposed shower system that I talked about, it's the most affordable, but it has the most flexibility. That might be perfect for that young couple, from a cost and a lifetime installation. Multi-generational family. This is where you're working with a client where you know you've got a homeowner and maybe their parents are moving in or they've got children and so the grandkids are there. So do consider the different components that you would use. In that case, certainly I'm going to put in basic shower head would be great, but a slide bar would be really awesome. So I can adjust the height for all the different generations. And if it's a luxury showering experience, side body sprays might be really good. I didn't mention this before. I want to mention it now. I want to make sure I talk about it. We talked about grab bars a bunch here today. Typically the slide bar for your shower is not a grab bar. There are very few adjustable handheld slide bars that are grab bars. There are exceptions. I happen to know that Lixil makes an adjustable handheld that fits on a standard ADA grab bar, but that is the outlier. That's the exception. And those, we typically sell those in commercial office buildings and gyms, or hospitals. But be aware, and even the homeowner needs to know this. Typically, the slide bar for your shower head, it is not a grab bar. And the reason I say that is if somebody uses it as a grab bar, they run the risk of injury. So hospitality is a little bit harder. This is accessible, not necessarily ADA, but it might be. In the range of customer types, it might be a family, it might be a couple staying there, it might be business people, it might be an affordable hotel, it might be a high end. So you really are going to have to work with the client to put together a good system. And there we go. So in this case, for my hotel, and this is becoming really common, I notice as I travel around the number of hotels I go into now. It used to be hotels had 90% bathtubs and 10% showers, and that has totally flipped. The hotels I go into now, almost always the room I get has a walk-in shower now. And they're all the things I talked about today: placement of the controls, placement of the glass door, accessibility, and it's really becoming common to see not only a standard shower head, but an adjustable slide bar and a handheld in a hotel shower. As I shared with you before, and this has to do with cost, almost all hotel showers have a pressure balance valve as opposed to a thermostatic.
I found this on the web.
Oh, thank you, Siri. And then workplace, what would you do in the workplace? Really pretty straightforward. Your best bet in workplace is to put in an adjustable handheld, and maybe a grab bar, depending on the installation. In fact, I probably would. And then a simple single control, and it can either be thermostatic or pressure balance in the case of the workplace. But you're going to want to have something that is adjustable across the ride.
I would add mostly for the for offices and more of the workplace shower. You may have like the C-suite, en-suite type showers, but the most common one is going to be a low flow. So you're probably looking more of the pressure balancing side. A lot of the times that we're seeing a shower go into an office tower is usually due to tying into lead points. I think there's a point or part of a point that you get for having a bike rack and bike shower area. So that's a very common application where the low flow handheld shower is a great option.
Yep. It's interesting to your point, Zach. I'm in an office. It's a multi-office building where I rent just an office in like a WeWork, and it's not WeWork, but like that. and the number of my neighbors here in my office building who either bike or take the trolley to work every day. And yeah, there's a shower, absolutely a very nice shower here set up, and people do, they shower and change once they get to work. So,
yeah, those like you were talking about, making work not just work has become a big trend in the industry.
Yep. Especially with hybrid work coming our way. So again, those are what you got to consider. Who is going to be using this? What are the different types of folks, and who? And what are their needs? And is their needs going to change over the years, or as different people move in and out of that space? So it's really one of those things where we as professionals, it's really critical that we ask all the right questions, that we do our homework with all the specs, and we put together the right components. And boy, in the goal of getting it right, I can't think of a better place to start than ATS with all of your tools. Because it's a lot. I'm not trying to do a commercial here, Zach. It's a lot of information, and it's the reason that everybody out there hires all of you all as professionals, because it's not one of those things. It's that you can just educate yourself and get it right.
I appreciate it, and I do. I actually do absolutely agree. I think reaching out, even specifying it on our system, as much as we try to make it as seamless as possible, there is a lot of different configurations and options. So it is helpful to know that we have our market development team, myself, Mo, Natalia. That's just some of our local personnel here. But all across North America, we've got our US guys, we've got our Western Canada and our Eastern Canada guys, as well as our internal spec team that are all here to help. But yeah, I guess we've brought the code up. That brings us to the end of the AIA accredited portion. Thank you all for joining on. We'll stick around and see if there's any questions that come up, maybe more specifics. So one question I have is on flow rates, and I'll clarify it. I asked this for a bit of the audience. I am regularly and frequently asked for, kind of ultra low flow showers. Obviously, a big push is always towards water savings. We talked about this in August when we were having our water savings conversation. Is the limit 1.5? Why do we not often see flow rates lower than the 1.5 GPM or your 5.7 liters per minute?
Yeah. So if you're asking me the question, or
if you happen to know, I'm happy to.
Yeah. So I will tell you, the engineers with computational fluid dynamics software, it's amazing what the engineers are doing to deliver expectation and performance with reduced water flow. And at this point, I can't speak for Canada, but the US probably conserves more water than any country in the world today. We are probably leading the world in water conservation. All the products that we make and sell in Asia and Europe use way more water. But we've put our tools to reducing it. Now, having said that, you do reach a point where to get a satisfying shower, you go below a level where it's just really hard, even with the latest technology. So where we've landed here in the US at the moment, there are a number of states in the United States that are down to 1.75 gallons per minute flow rate. And we're still able to engineer. You got to look for well-constructed and engineered product, but we can engineer a shower head or a handheld shower that delivers a really nice, satisfying performance. And back to testing, there is a WaterSense, which is the EPA here in the United States. There is a test. It's a plate with balanced weights on it on a fulcrum, and we put a shower head and turn it on, and a computer actually maps the performance of individual droplets and the drenching effect that they have. So there is a measurable way to measure performance. What you don't want is a shower head that just ups the pressure and it feels like needles. You want something that gives you delivers a drop in a shape and a form that feels drenching. And to my point, boy, I think there are 1.5 gallon shower heads out there, but you get below that, it's hard. It's hard to give a satisfying.
Well, and beyond the shower head itself, my internet kind of glitched out, so I may have missed this if you talked about it. My understanding is that there's valve considerations as well. It's kind of like how with the thermostatic and pressure balancing, there's a higher flow rate. That's because you need a certain amount of flow going through the valve in order for it to properly, adjust the temperature and limit the temperature.
Right.
It's true as well for the pressure balancing on its own. There is a minimum flow rate that needs to go through that valve before you start getting, the hot cold sandwich that, was prevalent before these
That's
low
true.
flow valves became.
Zach, you're
So
absolutely right.
if you get down below the 1.5, you
Yeah.
do, I think the minimum, none of them state on the manufacturer spec sheet. No manufacturer stating what the minimum flow rate is through their valve, because they're stating what their current version is testing to. But know that if you are putting on, say, a third-party valve to try to get to the 1.0 or lower, which I've had requests for, you are putting yourself in a bit of a danger zone of potentially having the valve not operate properly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The reaction time, the slower, the less water flowing through that valve, the longer it takes to react to a change if a dangerous situation's occurred. That's one issue. The other one I want to share with you, I didn't talk about it, but you probably are aware we are not allowed to make a shower head or a handheld that turns off at the head or at the handheld. Not allowed to do that. It must continue to trickle water. And the reason for that, it's a physics thing, and I don't totally understand it. But if I have a handheld and I shut the water off at the handheld, when I turn it back on, I get a burst of hot water immediately. And then I get the normal temperature I'd set. So we're not allowed to ever make a shower head or a handheld that completely shuts off, because when you turn it back on, you'll get scalded. So we can reduce the flow down to a trickle, but water must continue to come through it, or the situation will get set up where they'll get scalded.
That's interesting. I'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the research, I will show some of the research we've done on the ATS
Okay.
spec tool. I'm cognizant of the time.
Sharing.
I'm not going to do a full web demo here. If you would like to learn more on the spec tool, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my name in, my email in there. It's right in my name actually on the thing, zach@atspec.com. Or if you have contact with your local account manager, we can certainly set up your own demo so you can get a proper walkthrough on the spec tool. If this is your first time seeing it, atspec.com will take you to this homepage, and move this because you want to see the login here. Login free, paid for by the manufacturers. In essence, we have sponsors that pay to be on our system, multiple manufacturers across top manufacturers in each of the categories that we have. But one thing I wanted to highlight, if you go to the architects and engineers tab here, even before logging in, you have access to this information. We have our templates, which are, we've always had our mantra, the right product for the right application. We recommend the right product throughout our systems. So if you select an office building, you're going to see a different faucet, different faucet recommendation than you would in, say, a prison. Obviously, there's differences in the product requirements, the functionality that you need, and our system is going to recommend the right product for the right application. Right down to barrier-free code, select your location, and it'll apply the right barrier-free code for you. The templates is our right product for the right application, where you can use our ready-made specifications for various applications, and we're continuing to build these out. We only started launching these in the last 6 months. So over the last few months, we put together, design for dignity and care, independent living, standard mechanical room design, Class A offices. We were talking about multifamily residential today, at least a little bit. You could click this button here, start a live project, and then that'll get you logged into your account. It would copy the template into your account on the ATS spec system. You could download various output formats is what we call them, the download formats that's available from ATS. We have our standard submittal, fixture schedules in Excel. We have various Word specs on the ATS spec system. Once you create your bucket and start adding product to it, you can download, I think there's about 12, 13 different formats, from all of the BIM files to 3 different versions of written specs, a couple of different versions of Excel schedules, 4 different versions of PDF packages. So depending on how you every firm, every engineering and architectural firm has their way of taking product information and putting it into their outputs, whether that's a detailed written spec, whether that's a generic written spec with detailed drawings, BIM files, et cetera, et cetera. So we have different formats that'll fit those different needs. And of course, you can download a catalog version of this, put up in your email, and it'll send you that file. One thing I wanted to show, again, going back to this architects and going to our learning hub and the knowledge base tab, that's going to take you here, where if you click on the design support, we have various information on which states require special needs change tables, compliant locker room, which would of course include your shower. We have the barrier-free codes that I was mentioning before for various provinces and groups across Canada, and of course the same for the US. So our detailed, 2020 was the last update for the barrier-free code in Ontario. We got all the different design details, and of course you can download a quick, handy design guide as well. I mentioned the webinars a couple of times as we're coming to the end here. So if you want to go review, long-term care applications, sizing discussions, code discussions, all sorts of different topics that we've covered in the last few months, including some of the low flow and water savings discussions that we had with Gray earlier this year. And of course, once you're logged in, this is your spec tool where you have your own private account that is shared within your own firm. So if Gary and I were both working at Lixil, we could share our projects back and forth, even though he's down in the US and I'm up here in Canada. We could share our projects. We could have internal masters. I mentioned the templates, which is kind of the ATS master, but you may have your own version of that. You may not like the faucet that ATS has and prefer a different one. You may have a different standard shower after listening today to the presentation. Maybe you have decided that your firm's going to standardize around thermostatic and pressure balancing showers. You can take our multifamily template, copy it into your own internal master, and then make the tweaks as you go. So that all you have to do is hit copy to, put it into a new project, and it's the fastest way you'll ever get an entire project put together. With some of the benefits being that our model numbers are constantly kept up to date because we have our relationships with our wonderful partners like Lixil, who is telling us, hey, this toilet's being discontinued. We have, I know one thing we're working on is a huge list of discontinuances and product changes that are coming up. So your model numbers will be constantly updated. If a product's discontinued and you need to reselect it, you'll be notified. And of course, once you go into your project, you can then download the product. You can see I've added a shower here with body spray, the rain shower, the arms, all those different pieces. We can hit download and get those various formats that I talked about before. And of course, I did pre-download just in case you haven't seen this before. Or can put multiple products onto one's page, or you can have the detailed spec sheet format where you have all the various spec sheets, the actual manufacturer spec sheet. So if you need dimensional information, those extra details that are here, or if you need something a little more lightweight on the presentation side, we have our brochure format, which gives just the key details, small name and number, and a nice big image. And of course, I mentioned the written spec. Here we've got a nice clean written spec. This is one of our many open and editable formats that you could copy and paste into your internal written documentation. Or maybe you want to take the fixture schedule that we have available for download and put that onto your CAD or your drawings. Whatever it is you're doing, there's a format that will work and fit for you. Now, of course, I mentioned there's a lot more that you can do here. I'm going to hit the plus button and show you the variety of categories that we have on the spec system these days. There's a lot, but we can go in, we can pin our favorites. So let's say we want to pin our tub spout. We're doing a lot of showers, so I'm going to, find my my shower configurations. Oh, well, we also have the complete shower support as well. Where I just saw, where did it go? Luckily, if you can't find it, you can also search. So we can pin our showers to the top. and start adding our shower to our configurations. You can filter by various manufacturer types. You can filter by flow rates. We can filter by all sorts of stuff and go through, start configuring our selection. Select our options. It'll update the model number, list price, all those details. Add it to our selection. It's going to take us through the next steps. So that's the very short version. I'm cognizant of the fact that I've already ran over time, so I appreciate those that have stayed with us as we ran a little bit past. Thank you, Gray. That was very informative.
Absolutely.
I love the presentation.
Yep. The multi-general showers are trending. The takeaway from today is, oh my gosh, you got to do your homework for your client. They're counting on you as professionals, and what a great place to start is ATS.
That's great takeaways. Love it. Thank you for all those that spent your time with us today. I'll make sure our team is sending out the certificates of attendance. You receive the code if you do wish to register your AIA accredited certificates. Thank you, Gray, for your time today. It was fantastic. And if you need any help along the way, please feel free to reach out, Zach@atspec.com. Have a great day, Russ.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Zach.
Bye now.